that job you want. You can go out and get that promotion that you want. You can go out and be the provider for your family. It's about strength. And so I wanted these brothers to come on here and talk about mental strength because, some of us have leg injuries, some of us have sprain, ankle sprain or a break. And just like a leg injury, you got to pay attention to that and you got to monitor that. And you got to start asking professionals, what do I do? I tried to walk it off, but it persists and it's okay. No one feels ashamed to ask a doctor to help them with their leg. It's okay to ask a doctor, a mental health professional, something ain't right, right? Let's talk. And so that's my introduction. I am not a mental health professional. I come from a healthcare background. I did 20 years as a hospital administrator, so I understand how the health system works. I understand that there's a major gap, especially for our Black community. And so that's why I'm gonna turn it over to the professionals. And let me introduce them both. And then I'm gonna ask Daunte to start. So let me introduce Gene Wright first. Dr. Gene Wright is an author, a speaker, and a clinical and forensic psychologist. I'm not going to explain to you what that means. The name of his book is Find Strength in Your Struggle. I've read it. It is beautifully written. If you have struggled in your life, the pages of this book is going to bring that to life and show you how to find strength in that struggle, because we've all had that struggle. So I'm going to turn it over to, let me introduce Daunte, and then I'll turn it over to him and he can talk a little bit about what he does. Daunte is a mental health professional. He is the executive director of the Made Man Foundation. He is currently studying to get his master's degree from the University of Chicago. Daunte, take it from here, and please tell us about the Made Man Foundation.
Thanks, Isaac. Yeah, so the Made Man Foundation, I founded that, by like 2016. It was a childhood dream that turned into an organization. I noticed that coming up that I had a lot of feelings growing up and I really didn't know how to process them. I experienced some childhood trauma and I just didn't really know how to process it. And one of the ways that I was processing as a youth was through writing. That led me to becoming an author. That led me to, getting some writing degrees, but I still had all this kind of like this different pain and trauma that I was dealing with. So I decided to go into a career of healing, and everything that I've done probably since the age of 14 has been either supporting youth in the capacity of education, all the way to college counseling, but now on to mental health. And the Made Man Foundation was started just based on my level of rap, literacy, and mental health. And I combined all those three things and I made the Made Man Foundation. And it stands for the Making a Difference for Each Man Foundation. And our three programs that we have the MC program, which is the Man in Charge program, where we offer free therapy services to young Black men and community organizations and also public and suburban schools. We have our MATCCH program, which is a literacy program, which helps young Black men become authors. To date, I have helped close to about like 25 young men become authors through our program. And then we have the award tour. The award tour is where we take young men across the United States to expose them just to different things. And we visit all like the major hip hop cities. And what young men get a chance to do is they travel for free. They get a chance to study community issues. So let's just say, I'll give you an example. We might go to Zone 6 in Atlanta. We might meet up with rappers like Gucci Mane, Future, any other like rapper that might be in the area. So they'll get a chance to talk to professionals such as that, introducing them to different careers in hip hop, but they'll also be studying maybe the connection between the incarceration rate and the low literacy rates that pervade some of our communities in Zone 6 in Atlanta. So they're getting a chance to really kind of document history, learn some critical analysis, and gain some skills and connections along the way. But yeah, I've been doing this work. I would say I just now decided to get my piece of paper as it relates to my master's in social work, but I've really been practicing social work all my life. And I believe mental health is very, very important just because we do not achieve anything unless we have a wealth in the mind and a wealth in the heart. And a lot of the issues that we have as just as Black people, I strongly feel it relates to the matters of the heart and of the mind. You know, we can go to church, which is a very healthy component, and I very strongly recognize it. But also, we need to deal with our mental health issues as well. And the way I approach mental health is, since I work with youth, I do it through hip hop. I do it through this thing called hip hop therapy, and hip hop has been one of the big leveraging tools to get brothers and even young ladies to come in, and to really kind of like process what's really going on. If you listen to hip hop, you'll notice that a lot of the rappers, they have very high emotional intelligence, but some of that emotional intelligence gets brushed off as, you know, just being overly touchy feely, overly this, overly that. And actually, it's a very powerful thing. And having an outlet such as hip hop is cathartic. And bringing that into the clinical space when I work with people has been pretty successful. So yeah, I'm looking to just really just to make a really bigger impact in Chicago, working with young Black men, and hopefully one day to really expand my services to also accommodate young ladies too. But thank you so much, Eat and Isaac, for inviting me to the space. And yeah, if you have any kind of questions, I'm looking forward to answering those in the Q&A session.
Man, something resonated with me when you said hip hop. I listen to James Brown a lot, and James Brown used to sweat it out, or he sweat it all out on the dance floor. And I get the same thing when I listen to certain hip hop artists. If you listen to the words, they're going through it, and they're just putting it all in the lyrics and giving it to you. If you listen from album to album, so I appreciate what you're doing. That is deep. All right, let me get Dr. Gene Wright to introduce himself and talk about what you're doing. Gene, you're based in Philadelphia.
I am, and I put up the city behind me so that you all would be able to see some aspect of it. Uh, and it's an interesting thing, brother Daunte. Man, what you said resonated with me powerfully in terms of how you're bringing rap and hip hop into the clinical space. Man, that is so we got to talk, brother, because you got to come to Philly. Bring on that tour. You got to bring some of your fellows to Philly because we got Meek Mill. We got a few people you might want to meet, and so we'll get that done. But thank you, Isaac, and thank you, E, for inviting me. In my current capacity, Isaac told you I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist. What that really means is that I work in this space that intersects between mental health or behavioral health, I like to call it, because we don't just deal with the mental side, we also deal with substance use, and we deal with co-occurring challenges. And I like to say challenges because we don't deal with disorders or illness. And I love how you guys focused the whole conversation introduction on mental health, not mental illness, because we want mental health. And so my capacity as a division director for the City of Philadelphia, Department of Behavioral Health, I oversee the programs and initiatives to support individuals returning back to the community from jails, prisons, and psychiatric hospitalization. And as you have already indicated, Alonzo and Isaac, there's a disproportionate minority confinement in terms of the justice system, but there's also disparities in access to healthcare for people of color. And when you put that combination together, then you add in what Alonzo talked about, the economy, man, you have a trifecta that is disproportionately impacting our people. And so when I think about social determinants and what we're going through in this COVID time right now, it disproportionately impacts our people. When you think about the economic downturn because of the pandemic, it disproportionately impacts our people. And when you think about the challenges of trying to put food on the table and trying to stay, one step ahead of people who are supposed to protect and serve, but maybe just trying to look for you to kind of, take you into that other system called free labor, which is incarceration, it disproportionately impacts our people. So my job and my goal and my love and my compassion for my people extends to not just the official city work of making sure we have services for individuals returning, but also in the educational field. I'm a professor at Temple University where I work with young people, doctoral students as well, teach a multicultural class, which is so important that we pass on knowledge about who we are and what we are. Because if we don't do it, nobody's going to do it, right? If we don't teach each other about ourselves and our history. And so that actually helps your mental health because you can connect to positive things like Brother Daunte is doing. You can connect to positive things that allow our young people, our old people, and everybody in between to see the positive connection between who we are and what that means. And one last thing I will say, Isaac, before we move on, is that health is not just a positive or a good report from your physician, right? You mentioned injured a leg. I'm glad you used that example, because if you can run a marathon, but you can't pay your bills, you're not healthy, okay? If you can lift 250 pounds on the bench and squat 300 pounds, that's great. But if you don't have good relationships with your children or with your significant other or your parents, you're not healthy. I don't care if you're able to pass all the tests in terms of the preconditions, but if you're living in an area where you are not able to get home from work or school without being in danger, you're not healthy. And so to me, what EAT is doing and what you gentlemen that I'm looking at on the screen are doing, we're trying to make sure that our community understands that health and wellness is more than just getting a good physician's report. It's more than just feeling good, or that you are athletically gifted, or that you have some ability to do something that is physically active. We have to have a holistic health, meaning mind, body, spirit, strong. That's what we try to promote, not just in Philadelphia, but across the country. And I am honored to be partnering with Chicago to talk about those things for our community.
So let's talk about something easy. I mean, y'all hit us with a lot of heavy, big words. It's a heavy topic. Let's talk something easy.
Before they start talking about something easy, I want to say, man, y'all hit so many points. I got 100 questions, right? They already coming through the chat. This is a hot topic. Like, just to be able to feel comfortable enough to say, hey, you know what? I'm dealing with this. This is going on. How do I deal with it? To have individuals now in the house where we can address this, man, again, thank you all for being here. My fault. Isaac, go ahead, do your thing.
Well, Alonzo, I was going to ask your question about centering exercises. Is there something that we can do, without going to a mental health professional, something daily or something therapeutic that just kind of puts us in the right frame of mind? I know, Daunte, you let out in some of those that we did on the event out in Chicago. What are some daily things that we can do to just kind of keep healthy?
Well, for me, always with the centering, learning the meditation also was very important to me, which we don't find a lot of, and I'm trying to introduce to my loved ones, especially, and then also our work team, affirmations. I think that's very important, right? Where we be able to start speaking positivity into one another and affirming one another, right? Because it's like, I don't care whether we talk about, it coming from planning numbers or cracking jokes on one another. It's like we're more prone to put one another down. And I think that we have to pull ourselves back from that and start lifting each other up. So I'm very heavy on affirmations. And also with that, Black men affirming themselves and others, right? Acknowledging the fact that we're not everything that they said we were in a derogatory state, but start realizing who we really are and then holding ourselves accountable to that. So those are the three things that's been working for me. And then, a couple of push-ups every now and then that helps out.
Daunte, go through what you taught us when we were at the event. And then, Gene, you can tag on if you want.
Okay.
So yeah, I do a mindfulness exercise to really kind of get you grounded and kind of into the space whenever you're kind of really feeling detached from your body, or you're feeling a little anxious and you want to kind of reconnect to the present moment, because a lot of the anxiety we experience from thinking about things that haven't happened yet, or projecting on what we think is going to happen or what we believe is happening. So one thing I do think about is I close my eyes and I try to name some things out loud. So like when I'm closing my eyes, I'm thinking about what are three things that I'm smelling right now. Okay, so just kind of take a moment just to do that. Just take that real quiet moment, and it is okay. Some people, the way they teach mindfulness is they feel like that you have to automatically just clear out everything, when in reality, you do invite some of those really kind of intrusive thoughts, because you do want to learn how to really sit with the discomfort, because problems around you don't just stop. They don't stop. And the mindfulness is to bring your attention to being calm even within a storm. And it's about learning how to manage that. So if you do have some things that come up as you're kind of doing this exercise, it is perfectly fine. One thing that I encourage people to do, if we're going to kind of, are we going to go through the whole exercise right now, Isaac? Do you want to do that right now?
You can.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm gonna challenge everybody to get into a comfortable position, whatever that is for you, me. Sometimes I sit back. Sometimes I'll have my hands in my lap. I'll make sure my feet are on the ground. Some people do close their eyes, but it is not required. It is not required. And I want you to get into just your regular breathing pattern, okay? Me personally, I like to breathe through my nose because it kind of warms up my insides. And it's if you ever took yoga before, it's called the dragon's breath, and it heats up the insides, make you feel all warm and fuzzy. But some people like to breathe in through the nose and then out through the mouth. Whatever you're really comfortable with, you're allowed to bring that into the space. So I'm going to give you a moment just to get those things kind of set up, and then I'll give you some further instructions. Now, as you get into this comfortable position, I want you to really kind of just focus in on your breath. Think about the inhale, the exhale, and repeat that process. Just focus solely on the breath. If you feel like you're getting disconnected from what you're trying to focus in on, which is the breath, just maybe open your eyes and maybe figure out something in the room that maybe you can focus your eyes on. That is called an anchor. You might need something to anchor you and ground you in the space. Me right now, I'm looking at this little crack in my wall right now. That's helping me to kind of center myself. For you, you might be sitting in front of, you might be looking at your Zoom window. That could help too. Maybe you're looking at yourself. The next thing I want you to do is, as you're kind of focusing in on your breath, I want you to think about, name out loud. You don't have to get on a Zoom camera because it'll be very loud. I want you to name out 3 things that you smell. And I'm going to model that for you. I smell the orange juice on my breath that I sipped before I came into this meeting. I also smell my daughter's clean clothes, because this is the room where she keeps her clothes. I also smell an air freshener in my room. I'm gonna give you a moment to name those things. The next thing I want you to do is, I want you to name out 2 things that you can feel in your immediate presence. 2 things that you can feel. It can be in your arm's reach. It can be where your hands are currently. You don't have to do anything extra. 2 things that you can feel. This is going to help to ground your body. We're using all the sensations. So we already went over the things that we can taste. What are the things that we can feel? Right now, I feel the pleat on my pants. I also feel the leather on my seat. All right. Now you're going to name out some things that you hear. You can name out 2 to 3 things that you hear, and call those things out loud. Right now, I hear my wife talking on the phone. I hear my chair creak. And I also hear somebody with an unmuted mic on Zoom. I'm not gonna say no names. All right. Now you're going to slowly bring yourself back into the space. Slowly open your eyes if they have not already been open. And you're going to name out 3 things that you see. I'm looking at the crack on my wall. I'm looking at the blue texture, the paint job on my wall. And I'm also looking at this cup in my room. Take a deep breath. Let it out. Take another deep breath and let it out. And we're done. Those are some things that you can do to kind of ground yourself in the moment. Those are just kind of one of the mindfulness exercises that I like to practice when you're kind of feeling a little, kind of anxious in the inside, or, a little tense. Those things to really kind of help you bring you back into the center. Yeah. Also, too, I know it might sound kind of earthy. If you're ever really feeling really want to ground yourself, I challenge you to walk outside with no shoes on and step on the earth. Also, too, I've also hugged a tree before. It might look a little weird, but trust me, God makes no mistakes when He created this earth. We are made of water. If you think about everything else in this that's made in this earth, it's made with mostly water. Think about it as you're coming back to home when you step on the ground without your shoes on, without your socks on, and when you're hugging a tree. Think about it as like you're hugging yourself.
Man, what I really hear you saying is sometimes you just got to remove yourself from the environment that's creating the stress and the trauma, and just those breathing exercises. Just get your mind out of that, even if just for a moment, and let you transition.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The chat has been blowing up with COVID questions, so I'd love to get you guys to start talking about long-term effects of COVID. And I took the question 2 different ways, and y'all can go whichever way. Long-term effect on your mental health if you had COVID, or, just if you stayed at home during COVID and never got it. I mean, I think both can be, I don't, you want to throw out a clinical term, but traumatic. So talk about those.
Well, I'll go first, Daunte. Great exercise. I like the mindfulness exercises, and I tend to do those things every morning. Even when I used to be able to get in the car and drive to work, I would do it sitting in the car, waiting for the car to warm up. Now I just do it in my office chair before I turn on the computer and get started. Just kind of do a mindfulness exercise specific to COVID. And I put a couple things in the chat trying to respond to some of the questions as I'm also listening to the words that are being said. One of the things that's important to know is that when you think about the disproportionate impact on communities of color of COVID, that should not be a shock to us when you think about all the other things that disproportionately impact our community, right? When other people, have a cold, we got pneumonia, okay? And so when those of you who have heard that saying, you understand where that comes from, is that whatever's happening to the rest of the country, the dominant culture, we got it a whole lot worse. So COVID is no exception, right? When the economy went down and they started talking about, this is impacting our economy. Well, what does that mean for individuals who may not be in a position to work from home, who may not have those jobs that you get paid every 2 weeks, regardless of whether you did a good job or not? When Alonzo came on, he talked about the informal economy and what that means and how that impacts us. Another word for that is essential workers. What does that mean? What does essential worker mean? Well, it's Black and brown people. That's what they talk about. They talk about folks who the country can't do without us because we provide the services to keep the country going, just like we did during the Jim Crow era and slave area. Now, you may say, well, that's quite a reach, Doc. What do you mean? How you connect in those areas? Everything that America has ever benefited from has been on the backs of Black and brown people. The economy is no exception, right? This country wouldn't be as strong as it is without that. So how does COVID impact Black and brown people? It puts us in a situation where we may not have the same options of staying at home and sheltering in place if you are part of the economy that has to be out there making money. That's one thing. So you don't have the same alternatives in terms of safety. Yes, wear your mask, wash your hands and all that, but you're still out there delivering groceries. You still out there picking up. You still out there Uber. You still out there doing those things. You are stocking shelves. You're driving trucks. You're going to the healthcare. You're working in the hospitals. You're working in the clinics. You're doing all the things that's keeping everybody else healthy, and you're not able to take the same precautions as maybe other Americans are because you're working in a particular type of economy. That's number one. Number two, when you think about the stress of not having the normal outlets that you would have, right? Where can you go? What can you do? What resources do you have at your disposal? I talk a lot about not spending so much time worried about what you can't do, where you can't go, and what you don't have. Black people are very good at dealing with what they got. We don't usually spend a lot of time wishing for something that we don't have. What we do is we take what we do have and we make something out of it. That's why for years, I didn't know we were poor because I ate good. We didn't miss no meal. I had no idea because mom, grandma knew how to make it look like we weren't poor because we were eating. And as a kid, you had what you needed. So Black people are very, very creative, and they're very, very cognizant of making something out of nothing. So with COVID, how it impacts us, Isaac and Daunte, is that some of that creativity and some of those options that we normally would do are less available. So we have to really think about it. And the one thing I want to tell people, and I tell people this all the time, especially the dominant culture, stop saying we all in the same boat. We not all in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
We in different boats. We all in the same storm. We in different boats. Some people is in a canoe. Some people are in an ocean liner. Some folks was in a fishing boat, and there's some people hanging on by raft. Okay, we're not all in the same boat. And so what we have to understand is, how do we navigate with the boat we're in the storm that, yes, goes across all of our experiences. And so when you think about what's impacting us economically, Black people have to be more creative. What's impacting us in terms of our health? Many of us are concerned about certain healthcare options like vaccines, because we remember, or our grandparents reminded us of the Tuskegee experiments and why Black people are afraid to adhere to or take medical advice because of the history of people using us as guinea pigs and it not working out so well all the time. So those are the kind of things from a COVID standpoint that impact us. And so the last thing I'll say is, as adults, and there's a question in the chat about our children, as adults, we can't afford to show the same level of fear and anxiety and all that to our children in this moment when we do have resources and help, which is each other on this call, and we can connect to each other. What we have to do is show our children that, yeah, I know it's looking rough out there, and I know you don't understand none of this. Why can't you go to school and all? But let's look at what we can do, and let's utilize the resources that the Black community has always utilized, and that's each other. And that is just how we make it. That's how we get through, because we are not, we're not ready to jump off no bridge or anything, because we're used to hardships. We're used to things not going the way we want. We're used to things being hard and tough. Notice that the other group, other folks was having a harder time because they're not used to things not going their way. They're not used to not having the ability to come and go as they please. That entitlement. Black people don't have that attitude of entitlement. And so we're able to make it through some things. And so let's not negate or forget the resources called each other that already exist in the community. And just because we can't necessarily hug or shake hands or hang out in each other's spaces doesn't mean we have to be less social. We can still buy cases of water, drop them off on the porch and ring a doorbell. We can deliver food and still say, hey, and wave through the glass. We can still do things that support one another and still be socially restricted or socially safe. And I think those are the kind of things that we can teach our kids. Give them an opportunity to see that helping others has value, even in a pandemic.
Man, Gene, I don't know if you and I were talking about this or I heard it from somebody else on TV. So forgive me if I give the credit to the wrong person, but most black people wake up each morning and say, today might not work out the way I planned it. That's living in America as a black man. Just that, hey, today I got great plans, but most days they don't turn out the way I plan it. But does that weigh on you over time? I mean, like you said, we've gotten very good at it. The struggle, the hustle, the push through, the canoe through the storm with just a canoe and not a real boat. But does that just weigh on you over time? And do you sometimes just need to sit and reflect and let it all out?
I'll come in after Alonzo and Daunte.
Yeah, so this is you all, right? I wanted to make sure I interjected here, though, that one of the main things that equity and transformation is about, that I'm definitely about, is helping to start and to change that narrative, right? So we can move from just surviving, right, to actually start living.
Yeah,
but
man.
First, we have to get from being criminalized because we were surviving, right? So we're trying to I want to make sure that I say that part. And for me, right off back, is having to finally be able to have a place where I can come and release it all, right? And I can feel safe. Whereas it's heavy to constantly carry that burden every day. Usually when I'm talking to my male mentoring group, I give them this analogy of two men going out on a journey. And as they're going out on a journey, getting ready to run this race, they both have backpacks on. One have a backpack that's filled of everything that he's going to need to help him make it along that journey. The other individual has everything that he believes is going to help him make it along that journey. But in truth, he becomes a part of that backpack because he had to use everything in that backpack just to survive. So what are these things that we're talking about that's in his backpack? We're talking about having to have the stamina, as Isaac just mentioned, being able to wake up every day saying, you know what, it may not go as I thought it was going to go. Versus the other individual has the entitlement in his backpack saying that it better go the way that it needs to go. Because if it don't, that means something is wrong with everything else and not me, right? So that's very real in our community. And what happens along this journey is that you have one individual looking at the other one, like how come you ain't make it as far as me? And they're happy as they're going along this journey in life, carrying a backpack, throwing it around, able to sit it down because they have everything that they need in their backpack to survive. Whether the individuals that look like us, their backpack is holding them down because they're dealing with the traumas of not only post-slavery, all right, but also pre-slavery, all right, that we haven't even talked about yet. But then is layered traumas there. Okay, when you're dealing with verbal abuse, all right, whereas you learned how now to talk back and forth to individuals, but this was your survival mechanism going off, but now you're always seen as the angry man, right? Or the angry woman, right? But without speaking up for yourself or having a voice, what did that make you? Because without you saying anything, they did anything to you. As a man, though, having the traumas of an identity crisis, not knowing what it really means to be a man, especially nowadays. You know, do I raise my voice? Do I speak out? If I do that, does that make something wrong with me, right? And if I do those things, how am I gauged by society? And then now I start looking at myself, whether or not I'm right or wrong. And then we haven't even addressed the fact of the substance abuse issues. Because I want to escape from my reality, right? I have to self-medicate because I don't even trust going over to these doctors and they don't know what they're talking about. But I can go right over here to somebody I know and I can get what I need. And these are all the layered traumas that is in my backpack. So this has become me and I become one with the backpack and I don't want to put it down because it was all of these things that helped me to survive. So now I pass it back to you all saying, how do we unload that backpack so that we'll be able to be the individual that we was truly purposed to be?
I think it really starts with, just on a personal level, like what kind of life what kind of life are you looking to live? And starting with what your values are. A lot of the things that we think are out of our reach are well within inside of us, or where we have the capabilities to do. I know for me, my journey in accomplishing a lot of my goals, it really had to start with evaluating. All right, Dante, so you got these set of skills. You have not reached a certain level in your life, and what's the disconnect? I had to listen to the haters. I had to listen to what the haters were saying. You know what I'm saying? It's feedback. You know what I'm saying? It's feedback. I didn't let it kind of like really kind of sit in my spirit. Also, I went to therapy, and I had some very hard conversation. And I've had multiple therapists over the span of my life that have challenged me, that have affirmed me. And it's just about really getting those spaces to where you're going to feel safe enough to have those hard conversations, to really kind of boldly face yourself. And I know therapy has been one of the biggest transformational things in my life. But then also every day it is about waking up, and it's I kind of take this note from Diddy, also known as Puff Daddy, whatever era you grew up in. He's still Puff Daddy to me. But on his Making the Band episode, he was talking to one of the contestants on there. He was like, life is about waking up every day and finding your rhythm. And whatever that thing that you do to catch your rhythm, you need to do that on a consistent basis. When I think about the people that I admire, the Master P's of the world, maybe the 50 Cents, the Michelle Obamas, the Oprahs of the world, they have a routine. The way they kind of speak, the way they move through life, and it really kind of talks about, if you really look at them, they work hard. They have a routine. It's a combination of mental and physical, and mental and physical wellness. And yeah, man, getting that diet right. I know that can really kind of get you in the right direction, and that's easier said than done. Because if you notice, like when you go, they charge you for getting lettuce and tomato on your burger now. Like they used to be free. So like, but eating healthy is one of those things that can really get you going. Like a lot of the things that we eat, it depresses us. If you look at some of the ingredients, high fructose corn syrup, that when we eat those hot chips, it has red 40 in there, or the blue 60, whatever it's called. Like all that stuff is garbage, and it just really is low vibration, and it does not bring us any kind of wealth. And I'm not saying that you should go completely Dr. Sebi and just go to a strictly alkaline diet. You ain't got to go that super extreme, because I'm still about to eat chicken. But diet is one of those things that I would say, hey, we all like to eat, but we could all eat a lot better. And just taking just like a little walk every day, like a 10-minute walk, maybe build up to 15 minutes. That's now the physical part. Then if you bring in maybe the spiritual aspect of it, if you whatever kind of way that you practice, those are wellness things. Then add that extra piece in, maybe start going to seek out some places, some therapy places that have a sliding scale. Some of us feel like we do not have the money to pay for a therapist. That is false. If you can buy a pair of sneakers, if you can go spend $30-$40 at Papa Do's, or wherever you like to eat at, honestly, there are therapists out there that will work with you for like $30-$20, just depending on your situation. Thing that you should approach, you find a therapist on psychologytoday.com, or you can get some referrals from people like myself, or Dr. Wright. You approach those therapists, you let them know your situation, and then ask them, do they have a sliding scale? You can get a therapist, and they will see you. And it's not like they about to be giving you like the $20 treatment. They're gonna treat you as if you $120 per hour paying customer. That's what people like myself and Doc. I'm not gonna put Dr. Rex on. I don't want to be just saying it, but but yeah, that's what we're here for. We're in that space to really provide a service, and there are people out there that would love to work with you. But I think we get to that space of thriving when we really kind of say enough is enough, and it's really about being intentional about your steps. And I think Oprah, she has this thing. If you YouTube it, it's called make the next right move. So think about where you are at this current moment. What is the next right move that I can make towards whatever goal that I'm going? Then you reach that little mini milestone, and then you make the next right move. And it's just a domino effect. Everything in life is about energy, and when you get your energy right, things will matriculate. I firmly live by and I'm not even like a super mega Christian, because I really draw from a lot of different things, but I definitely live by Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. But if you also just break that down into a metaphysical or just a mental health standpoint, it is pretty much when you start to honor the things that you really want in life, and you start really kind of going after the things that you know. Because deep down, I feel like we always know what to do. It is about if we're going to do those things. Like it just like that's the reason why a lot of people after the first of the year they go sign up at Planet Fitness and then they quit in February. You know you probably should have been at the gym. I don't need to tell you that. Like go do it. So I don't know. That's my spiel.
Yeah, I think it's important what Alonzo said about moving from surviving, and then Daunte, you threw in the word thriving. And I think that's important. You have to keep in mind that you have to maintain a reasonable expectation of yourself. And that is about making the right move. Sometimes we have unreasonable expectations and we get discouraged based on what we expected to happen, based on what actually could happen. And we don't always connect it to our own efforts. And so if you have a fatalist attitude, meaning that everything is out of your control, then you will live as if everything is out of your control. And you spoke of a spiritual component. I really believe with all my heart that it is the God you believe in, that's the one you serve. The God you believe in is the one you serve. If you believe that you are lowest on the totem pole and nothing's going right, and it's never going to happen, and it's just you got dealt an unfair deck of cards, and it is a fatalist attitude, then that's what you'll serve. But if you believe that there is strength in struggle, and I think about it, when I wrote that book from a standpoint of not things weren't going real well when I wrote that. But what I understand is that struggle is inevitable. You cannot wake up every day and expect that life would be without struggle. That's unreasonable. It is an exercise in futility. The actual reasonable thing is to understand that life is full of struggle and I have to build some muscle, right? I don't know anybody that looks like Alonzo that walks by and looks in the gym and just looks. No, Alonzo actually went in and picked up some stuff. Okay, you could just tell. He went inside and picked up some stuff that's inside. He didn't get like that peering in the window, the piano player that we love to hear. They didn't get that ability to tickle the ivories by watching pictures of people playing piano. Whatever you do, the ballerina, the dancer, the hip hop artist, whatever you have perfected took time and there was struggle involved. We only see the beauty at the end. We only see the muscle after the fact. The marathon runner didn't wake up and run 26 miles, bro. No, he or she started half a mile, another mile, threw up, added 5, went to, and then eventually they do 26 miles. And so my point is that what I hear Daunte saying and what I hear Alonzo saying is real. That we have resources, we have things that we can do, but you have to maintain in your mind that you are the one that can do it. And I tell people all the time, stop waiting for the cavalry. We the cavalry. We the cavalry. Don't wait for no cavalry. We it. Okay. And so understanding that you have the power, you have the ability, you have the talent, you have the skill. Now that doesn't mean that you're not going to wake up some days, like Isaac said, thinking, you know what, I don't know if this is going to work out, because we've been beat down so much and we've been hurt so much. The micro and macro aggressions that you alluded to, Isaac, are real. They're real. But you also have to draw upon the experience that you have that, man, I made it through a whole bunch of stuff. I must be somebody. I must be tougher than I think because I made it to another day. And now I'm going to do what I always do, which is I'm going to make that next step to make sure that this day is better than the last day. I can just tell y'all that if you want to change your attitude and change your expectations, change how you see yourself. Don't look outside of yourself at other people. Look internally and understand that what's valuable to you and then own that. Don't be ashamed of what's valuable. Own what's valuable to you. And then you will put down stakes and you will be motivated to move in a direction that is valuable to you. And so you have to know who you serve, which if you believe in a higher power, understand that that is going to really color how you do it. If you believe in a benevolent, kind, loving higher power, then that's what you'll serve. If you believe in a punitive, pejorative, mean, nasty, he don't like black people kind of God, then that's what, you're going to have that attitude. But at the end of the day, you have to go into it believing that you have the tools, and that whatever tool you don't have, you can acquire with education, with hard work, with networking amongst people that look like you, because you have to be able to understand that everything we need, everything that is valuable, we have in our community. We have to tap into it. We have to remind each other that we exist. That next brother, that next sister that can help you is already there. We don't have to invent it. We don't have to go outside looking for it. They exist. Let's come together and let's make it happen.
So look, I want to transition us, but before we do that, I just want to affirm everyone that called in today. That is showing that you care about yourself enough to learn a little bit more about the topic. So affirm all the panelists. We've got 28 participants as well. So let's go to Q&A. And Nicole, tell us what format you want to do this. Do you want the panelists to read the questions in the chat, or do you want to open up people to voice questions? What's the...
I think we're gonna.
Hi. Tell her say hi.
Okay.
Tell her everybody say hi.
Oh my gosh! So I apologize. I think the best way is for us to everyone put their questions in the Q&A section. We do have some in the chat that we could also we can also address, but I think it's probably easiest if people put in the Q&A and then we can just read them out and answer them then.
Okay. I'm just now seeing the Q&A section. This is a question from Solomon Johnson. What if you are living in a space where you are being forced out to eat street food, and when you are out there looking for a healthy meal, there is no good option to choose from?
So one of the things, I don't think that Solomon is the only one that's dealing with that. Most of the communities that we work in are operating in food deserts, all right? So one of the things that Equity and Transformation did last year was to do a produce and protest, where we worked with Black farmers to be able to get fresh grown vegetables, fruits, food, period. So we would have that in our community, and we was able to give that to individuals in the community. And we did that during the time of COVID. But what was the other part about that, which goes back to what other panelists had said today, is that when we have it hard, we rise to the top, right? We start coming up with digging down deep inside ourselves, figuring out what we're going to do to survive. And we remembered, hey, we didn't have to go to the store all the time. We used to have gardens in our backyard, right? I remember my grandmother going back picking, I pick collard greens that had corn growing right in the backyard. And it's getting back to the mindset. One of the things that our founder, Richard, always, talk to me about, which is the thing that we're pushing right now for this month. Don't compete with me, eat with me, right? Instead of looking at what the next person have, look at what they don't have and figure out how you can help them to supplement that. And that's what Equity and Transformation did, because we saw that there was a need there inside the communities that we're servicing. So we went and we found the solution to that. So one of the things that we're going to be doing this year is showing individuals how they can have their own gardens inside their backyards or front yards or whatever it is we need to do. So Solomon, you'll definitely be part of that program so we can make sure that you're getting some food that you need.
Very good. All right, the next question is from Tyrone Burton, and I know Tyrone personally. He is an author and a good friend of mine. He writes so prolifically. All I can tell you is that the first book is very good. I haven't had a chance to get to the second book. They came out within 90 days of each other, so I got to get to say he is an educator. His question is there a pathway or organization geared towards mentoring or developing Black men to pursue a career as a school mental health specialist? So the education field. So this is getting to how do we get what we've talked about to our kids in school.
I don't personally know any organizations that actually serve that direct mission. However, there is a much needed space for Black men in the mental health space, just period. And when I go to a school right now, and it's mostly like Black women who are in this space. But just I think having brothers like myself, Dr. Wright, um, you, Isaac, Alonzo. I even think of you as a health professional on a certain level. You know what I'm saying? I think just having brothers like us just in that space and just being relatable, that can only do, I mean, wonders just for the promotion that this is even a viable career. Honestly, truthfully, I think a lot of barbers need to probably get licensed as social workers. I don't know. My barber is my doctor. He is my therapist. He's my everything. And honestly, there is a push actually to make barbershops actually more clinically trained. I think there's a program also in Milwaukee right now where there's a mental health facility that actually has a barbershop that is included in it because they recognize like the cathartic element of sitting down with your barber, telling your barber your whole life story, your barber giving you this awesome advice. Hopefully your barber not too toxic, because I know some toxic stuff goes on in the barbershop, but just having more brothers just in this space and just showing the value of it. I know with my young men, I showed him everything. I opened up my paycheck to him because a lot of times brothers, young brothers, they interested. It's like, man, I'm not about to go into this career if you ain't really making no money. When in reality, some of the stuff that they trying to do, we're gonna end up making the same amount of money anyway. So hey, you might as well do something like this, and you're much needed and valued in this space. Just because you're a commodity when you work in the mental health field, and you're an African American man who knows your stuff, there are people that will pay you to do really, really good work. But to answer your question, I don't know any like direct organization that serve that particular mission. But it is something that I do encourage, especially my brothers who are definitely really in tune, who really just got the gift of gab and just have that empathetic spirit. I do encourage them to go into fields like this though, because the sisters are highly represented. We need more brothers in this field.
Generally, what I would say real quick, you guys may have in Chicago 100 Black Men. Do you guys have that organization?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you have Big Brothers, Big Sisters organization?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think of some national ones that are across those, again, to Daunte's point, they may not serve to make you or try to push you toward being in the mental health field, but they have brothers that can be mentors in all kind of fields, including mental health. And so it's very important that you look at what's available in your community, because we probably have it in the community. You also have to look at the National Organization of Black Psychologists, and you probably have something called the National Organization of Black Social Workers. I know, Isaac, you guys have one with Black MBAs and different things. So you have those kind of organizations across the country that pretty much fit any of the vocations that you could imagine. And I like how Daunte talked about letting the young men see, the inside of what it takes. I don't know, I haven't showed a lot of the young men my paycheck, but they have asked me, how many years does it take to do what you do? And what I try to tell them is, it doesn't really matter how long it takes to do what you do. And I never recommend a career based on money. I always tell my college students, I say, choose something you love. If you love it, you'll do it all the time. If you do it all the time, you'll become very good at it. When you become very good at it, people will stand in line to pay you. And so you have to, because what you do is intrinsic. If it doesn't have an intrinsic value, I mean, if the value, if the motivation, if the energy, if it's not coming from inside and it's external, I mean, you're only doing whatever you're doing to get paid, it's not going to last long. But when you do something because you have a passion for it, in my case, I've never worked a day in my life. I've been doing this for 25 years, right? Because I love what I do. And so very, very important that you connect yourself to organizations that already exist in your community. They already exist in your community. right? And then, you can take those young people all around the world, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in the mental health field. But certainly I agree with Daunte. We need more Black men. Social work is dominated by Black women and white women. Very few men, period. Very few Black men in social work. In psychology, very few Black men in psychology. A few Black women, but mostly dominated by other cultures. So there's a way to get in, but there's not an organization that caters specifically to Black people to get them in mental health.
So what's interesting is I took the question a different route, and I
Okay.
think both are worth talking about. I took the question as, how do we get more mental health professionals in schools where kids need that type of attention and counseling?
Yeah, that's a
And I
funding
think
issue.
I think it's a gap.
Yeah, that's a funding
When I
issue.
was a hospital administrator, we had a big program to get more nurses in school,
Mhm.
especially Title I schools, where these are kids that, they weren't getting annual checkups. That nurse in the school was their only access to healthcare, right?
Mhm.
It's along the same vein of getting lunches in schools. Some of these schools and these kids, that's their only meal a day, the only prepared meal. And I think there is an opportunity to start funding and finding ways to get mental health professionals in schools,
Yeah.
high schools, middle
Those
schools.
two things you mentioned, Isaac, are the first two things that were cut in Philadelphia public schools
Hmm,
when they had the funding crunch. First thing they cut was the school counselors,
hmm.
and they cut the feeding program. I'm not even sure of the correct name, but they used to, especially they didn't have that for high school, but for the younger children, they had what you described as they served them breakfast, they served lunch, and they had a little something if you had to stay after school. The first programs they cut, again, I can't speak for Chicago or the rest of the country, but in Philly, that's the first thing they cut when they had a money crunch, is they cut school counselors. And so to your point, we would have to make the same amount of emphasis to bring that back as we would a school food program, because
Yeah.
the people who making the cuts aren't hungry. Think about it. The people making the decision to cut, well, we got to cut the budget, we got to tighten our belts. Anytime somebody tells you we got to tighten our belts, check their belt. Check their belt. All right. So you always got to be concerned about that when they cut. But no, you make a good point, Isaac. We need that into schools, and they were looking around about what's the bare minimum we can do without. And in communities of color, we make sure they got them security guards, but we're gonna get rid of those school counselors in the food program. But we're gonna pay a militarized security company to stay in our schools. I mean, think about the message that sends to our children.
All right, now we're talking about police reform and school reform. We can go another hour on those topics.
It was a question that I want you all to address, and then it'll come back to me. And the reason why I want to do it like that is because this heavily affects the demographic that I'm constantly working with. And it comes from Michael Rivera. And he's asking, when do we stop looking and sounding like angry Black men and get recognized as men speaking out against being hurt and taken advantage of? And it goes back a little bit to say, okay, it's a sense of survivability when you have been incarcerated that you have to carry yourself a certain way. But then when you comes back into society, you're released, you're still carrying yourself that way for very good reason, because you're not knowing what's going to happen to you out here, whether it's the police or whoever may be trying to commit a harm to you. So you have to carry yourself a certain way. But then you found out later, right, that everybody is looking at you like you're the angry man. So how do you work that out with inside yourself on how you should be navigating through life? I have an answer, but I want to see how we're going to tackle that.
That's a great question, man. And this is my life's work for 20 some years. And one thing that the brothers that I work with, and most of the guys that I work with are coming out, they were called juvenile lifers. These are young people that were incarcerated as children, and now they've done 30, 35, 40 years, and now they're coming out as men, raised in prison. And what I will tell you is this: most of the people that I've talked to, Alonzo, talk about that I was traumatized before I ever went to prison, and most people, men of color, are. But if you weren't traumatized before you went to prison, you will be when you get there. And what people leave out is that you will be when you return home. So those three things: before prison, I was traumatized. I went to prison, I was traumatized. And now I'm out and I'm traumatized, because now everything's changed depending on how many years you've done. And so one of the things that I make free for anybody of the guys coming out in Philadelphia, first thing, I go behind the prison walls all the time before COVID to make sure they have that, anything they need. When they come out, they know they have a standing appointment with me, and they've never paid a dime. So Daunte talks about the $20, well, Daunte, you know what, I can't even afford to charge them $20 because these brothers are coming out looking for support. And so, Alonzo, what I would say is the first thing is we have to build that relationship before they come home, because there is a stigma with seeking mental health treatment, not just for Black men, for Black people, period, but especially for men. And what am I saying? What am I admitting if I go to a therapist? What am I admitting if I go? But when you establish a relationship with somebody and they have a trust built in you, then they will come and say, look, I'm not sure about this thing, but I trust you. So tell me how this goes. And then you kind of work with them, because we can talk about how the behaviors that helped you in prison, how they're not functional for you now, how they're not helpful for you now. You have to be able to adjust. And so that's why I don't believe in reentry. Anybody can reenter. I believe in reintegration. Reentry is when they give you a resume, make sure you get a state ID, make sure you have a place to stay, a halfway house until you can get your own place. That's reentry. We can move way past that. We need reintegration. For a brother to stay and a sister to stay in the community after release from prison, you have to do more than reenter. You have to have reintegration. And what reintegration does is it connects you to places like EAT. It connects you to people that have viable job options. It connects you to places to stay that are safe and stable and secure. It connects you to people that are not going to get you reincarcerated just by hanging out with them, right? All of these things have to be taken into consideration. And so what that does is it allows the brother or sister to know, I don't have to continue to wear the same face. I don't have to continue to display the same body language to survive, to get through, because I've met somebody, I've talked to some people who get it. And now that I have a circle of support of people who get it, you slowly see that wall coming down, that defensiveness coming down, that anger subsiding just a little bit, because all they wanted was somebody, one person, to say, I hear you, let's work this out together. And so then that defense mechanism, that thing that's blocking you from adjusting and moving on in society, can slowly be turned to now be a benefit, because you've learned some new coping skills. You've learned some new crisis management skills, which you're going to need on the outside. You've learned a way to read behavior, and you've learned a way to understand language and your perceptions and interpretation of what people are presenting to you. You now see it in the eyes of somebody in the community and not eyes of somebody who's on the block. And as you make that transition, you can start making decisions and moving in a way that is actually more reliable for you in terms of what you want, as opposed to keeping the same behaviors that you had to hold there for 10, 15, 20 years, if that's how long you were in.
There's a question in the chat that I would invite the panelists to read. I'm not exactly sure what the question is, but in the question, they say, when are we going to establish that we need healing, not help and programs? And I thought that was powerful, because I think it affirms the talent that the Black community has. We got the answers. We're resourceful. We're creative. We got the culture. We can do it. We have just been traumatized for decades and centuries. We need, if we had that healing, which is what I think a lot of you brothers have been talking about tonight, the mental healing. I think we can go out and conquer the world. So I just wanted to pull that out of that question. Thank you, S. White, for delivering that.
I think that also is being able to rise above everything that's going on around us and having moments like this and turning these from moments until our time, right? To say that we've been through everything else and we need to start that healing process. And this is what it looks like, because just sitting back for an hour, right? I feel more comfortable. I feel more safe. I realize that I'm not the only one that's going through that. And it's individuals that not only look like me that can relate to that, they sound like me also, right? And that's very important. They're not speaking above my head or speaking beneath me as though I don't get it, right? They're speaking my language so we can now interrelate and it becomes really real to me. And they're answering my question, even if I don't know how to fully answer that question yet, but I know what I feel, right? And they are the experts that's figuring it out. And now I can appreciate them for that. And this is how we continue to grow. And this is what it's about right here. And to continue to just keep on being able to do this. So this is what it looks like. And this is the healing process has started.
Yeah. I think one of the more powerful words I've heard in the relationships I had is when someone says, "Yeah, brother, I know." You know, it doesn't matter what comes after that. I got it out. Someone validated me. I'm not crazy for taking it the way I took it, for seeing it the way I saw it. Yeah, brother, I know. All right, let's move on. That's healing.
Yeah,
I believe that Reverend Heath had a question. I'm not sure if it got answered.
Yeah, so I believe his question, I was going to circle back to that one. I think his are related to how do we address the stigmas that impede people coming into the healing space. Reverend Heath, I think you have one of the most powerful platforms to do that. There's been a number of churches in Chicago that have had mental health symposiums, pretty much something like this, except we do it in person. And it's pretty much just a fair for the community to come in to learn more about mental health. Into a space that a lot of people feel accepted, which is church, and having some of those conversations inside of church and inside of those spaces to erase some of those stigmas. I know, I think Trinity Baptist Church, I know they've done some things. I'm not as sure about Salem Baptist Church, maybe so. I think they might have done some stuff, but just inviting, mental health professionals from the community. They often attend the local churches, so you might have some jewels sitting in your congregation, and it just might be just about really kind of asking those things and asking people to come out on a Sunday. I know one of the churches that I attended where I sat on the panel, we just did it kind of like right after the service. It was about 5 mental health professionals up there from just different backgrounds, and just allowed the congregation just to kind of just ask questions. And then also we came with some information as well, passed out some information, directed them to some resources that were inside of the community. But honestly, there's a lot of stuff that exists inside of our community, but sometimes, we do have way too many different programs. Like we all doing the same thing. And it's just like, sometimes they kind of gets lost in the sauce, but yeah, you might have some jewels kind of sitting in your congregation. So I would implore you to maybe kind of just, hey, just ask the congregation. And you can definitely also reach out to me, and I can pull together some professionals and come in and talk. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, two things I would like to add. I agree with Daunte. The health fairs are very effective because it reduces the stigma and the paranoia about I'm going to see a mental health professional. It's all kind of help. You getting blood work checked, you're getting dental work done, you're getting all kind of things. And oh, by the way, on this other booth over here, you can go get it. You can have a kiosk where you can kind of check your stress level, and so it kind of fits in that way. So that's good. The other thing is I do a lot of work around the country with really trying to encourage faith communities and behavioral health communities to partner. When you think about the vast majority of people in the United States have some belief in God or some higher power, whatever they recognize as God, upwards of 85%. And they usually fall into the top 4 religious denominations that you would imagine. You have Catholicism, you have Christianity. Outside of Catholicism, you have Islam, and then you have Judaism. All right. the vast majority of the people in the United States adhere to Christianity, right? And so you have that belief system. But what happens is a lot of times when people do seek help, they expect people to not discuss their spiritual beliefs or their religious beliefs. And so what we end up doing as mental health professionals is asking people to leave parts of themselves out in the lobby when they come into the treatment center. So that's a problem. So one of the things that I've been doing is really going around the country talking about the impact of trauma on communities of color, right? And then you take that and it's a natural connection to the impact of trauma in communities of faith, right? And so I've been partnering with clergy around the United States to partner with them so that they have an expertise that I don't have, because Black and brown people don't go see Dr. Wright. Black and brown people go see Reverend. They go see the imam. They go see the priest before they go see doctor anybody, right? And so the religious leader, the faith leader, is probably the first individual that a person is going to go see when they're feeling some kind of stress. So that's the other thing. And then finally, I would say there's a public health education that really works on reducing stigma and also educating people, called mental health first aid. It's fairly inexpensive. You can get a group of community people together to bring folks in. It is the mental health version of CPR. It's the mental health version of CPR. And so just like most people at some point probably learn CPR, it doesn't make you a doctor. What it does is allow you to be able to support individuals until a physician either is on the scene or you can get that person to a health facility. That's what CPR does. It's the same thing with mental health first aid. Learning mental health first aid does not make you a mental health professional. It is geared and designed for civilians who are not mental health professionals, so that they know how to support individuals, what kind of questions to ask to make sure the person is not suicidal, and then how to get them to support they need where they're going in a very non-invasive, non-stigmatizing way, because it's one community person to another community person. And that is something that the churches may want to consider. And in Philadelphia, actually the Muslim religion was one of the first in Philadelphia to embrace mental health first aid. The Christian denominations came in right away after that. And we've trained over 25,000 Philadelphians in mental health first aid. Okay. And so that is another option. So yes, you can have the health fairs. You certainly can have the training that is geared towards faith communities, the impact of trauma in faith communities, so that faith leaders understand how to recognize trauma in their congregation, how to recognize ways not to re-traumatize people in the pew, with wrong messages, and then of course, there's training out there that's available that is relatively cheap that you can teach people non-stigmatizing ways to address mental health challenges in the Black community.
That's good. Nicole, give us a time check. How are we doing on time?
Well, we're a little bit over, but I think that this conversation was worth it. So we're it's 7:22 right now. So about 22 minutes over. I think that we don't have any more questions in the chat. We could kind of close everything out, maybe if anyone has any last questions, chat them in now. If not, I think that we can close them out. I mean, I think that this conversation can go on all night if we wanted to, right?
Definitely. I want to thank our panelists, Daunte and Jean. Number one, we just had some very intelligent Black men speaking to our community, which we don't see on TV, but we need to see more of, because we've got talent in our community, and we've got enough talent to help each other. So I want to thank you guys for coming on the panel tonight. Very good job. We like Nicole said, we can talk all night. This is good. How about we have parting words from our panelists, and then we'll let Alonzo close us out.
Okay, I was going to say go ahead, Daunte, but I'll go ahead.
Thank you. Go first.
Okay, Daunte, thank you. So thank you, Isaac. Thank you, Alonzo. Thank you, Eat, and all the people who called in tonight. This has been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to serve our community and to share. And what I would say is that if I could be of any resource or any help, don't let the fact that I live in Philadelphia keep you from calling me or sending me a link to participate in something or to do anything. Because one thing that COVID has taught us, we don't have to be in the same space to be in the same space. And so we have taken advantage of what's in our hand. We've taken advantage of what we can do and what we do have, and that is this Zoom platform. So if I could be of any help, Reverend Aiden, please reach out. We're glad to help you. Would love to work with you, Daunte, Alonzo. And so my parting word is just thank you for allowing me to participate. And please take me up on my offer. I don't just throw words around like that. If I say I'm available to you, it means that I'm serious and I want to be of a help. But more importantly, I want to roll my sleeves up and get in there and get dirty with you. So please take me up on that offer. Thank you.
And thank you so much to Eat for allowing me to grace your space again. I know I shared the space with you all this summer at your event that you held on the West Side. So I just thank you so much again for inviting me. Thank you, Isaac, and nice meeting you, Dr. Wright. But yes, just to everybody that is in the audience, please, reach out. I am accepting new members to my organization, the Made Man Foundation. We're looking for young Black men to work with. Reach out to me. I put my information inside of the chat. And yeah, I'm very accessible. So yeah, reach out to me, and I wish you the best on your healing journey, and just be kind to yourself as you kind of go through that process. And remember that it is just even a centimeter is progress.
I just want to point out too that I had called Isaac and had told him about this. So I just want to show my appreciation to everybody on this panel, to you, Isaac, for putting together this phenomenal panel. There was not even a hesitation. I asked him, I got a response right away, and he said, I have the perfect people in mind that would really benefit your members. So I want to show my appreciation to you, to Dr. Wright, and to Daunte for coming out. And I think this was a very important call, and maybe we could think of a part 2.
All right, I like it. Thank you.
And then Zoe, you want to close us out?
Yeah, so I definitely want to not only thank the panelists, but every last one of the individuals that attended, because that's what really made this possible. We could get on here and we can talk about everything that we know, but until it go into your ears and we actually start practicing this is what makes it possible. This is why we do the work that we do. So this is what equity and transformation is about. Again, don't compete with me, eat with me. We're all sitting at the same table. Let's make sure that we're all being nourished. And I want to thank our founder, Richard Wallace. It's because of his passion and his vision that we're able to do this, right? We just don't come up and just start pulling things out of the woodwork. He said, let's make sure that we're taking care of our people. And when it comes to mental health, we want to make sure that we're doing that part also. There's a lot going on in our communities way before COVID, right? So we want to make sure that we're addressing that. And this is how we have equity in our communities. One of the next things that we will be doing is on the 13th, we will be dealing with the Breathe Act. We want to make sure that everyone will attend. I will be sending out the links to everyone, and also our panelists. We want you all to see the other work that we are all doing, because as we're also dealing with mental health, we're also dealing with policy and legislation that needs to be passed. We want to make sure that we're all a part of getting this work done. So thank you all. I will be reaching out to everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed this. And again, don't compete with me, eat with me.
I like it. I like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.
All right.